So not 100% Cabernet Sauvignon.
No. The 2005, 6, 7, and 9 are all 100%. I'm sorry, 2, 5, 6, 7 are all 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. We knew that the Petit Verdot was really going to complement it. The vines were still a little younger, and what we like is it adds just a little kind of a violet scent in the nose, and just another little delicate layer of flavor in the palate. And when we do the blending, Tony Coltrane makes all the blends after we've had the discussion, and we have no clue as to what barrels went into those blends. It's all totally blind tasting. And he is infamous, not just for putting out of, say, 10 glasses, one duplicate. Sometimes he'll put 2 duplicates.
Nice.
So we'll have 3 of the same. And I'm sitting there going, these are really different.
Yep. No, they're not.
And he starts smiling. I go, shoot, I got to go back and really taste. But we try to keep ourselves honest by doing that, because it's very easy to get into almost a house mind palate.
Yeah.
And so we challenge ourselves to really make sure if there's a duplicate in there, if we don't find it, we're not tasting well that day.
Yeah. Is it fair to say you're spending a bit more time in the vineyard than in the boardroom nowadays than
we don't have a boardroom.
prior? I was going to say, right?
That's so great.
Yeah.
The boardroom is either when I'm shaving in the morning or when I'm talking with my son and daughter.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And what's wonderful, because they're both in late 30s, early 40s, is that I have more faith in them in understanding the wines and how we should go with the M Cabernets, with our other wines, than even I do. Because let's be realistic, the customers of today and the future are more your generation than they are mine. The foods over the last 30 and 40 years have changed dramatically. They're more fresh, they're delicious, they're in many cases simpler, like the sushi and the wonderful luncheon you had today.
Right.
Beautiful, fresh ingredients.
Yeah.
The foods across the board are like that. You need wines that complement the foods, that are beautifully balanced. And I think balance is one thing, particularly in Cabernets today. People go for body or intensity and forget the balance. The balance is what brings you back to the glass.
So the balance is kind of what you're looking for when we're thinking more of that farm to table type scenario.
Yes.
With these, but it's funny because, elegance kind of, you talked about Bordeaux wines in the past and things, like maybe the early Opus or some of the early Bordeaux wines, et cetera. And, that was it was a world of cream sauces and butter and that kind of stuff. And these elegant wines were made for that. And now
but they had a much
again.
firmer tannin.
Yeah.
They needed that tannin to cut through the cream sauce and the richness.
Yeah.
The wines today have to be, and people aren't going to age them for 15 or 20 years before they drink them.
No, those days are gone, right?
And so we have to make a wine that has the elegance to go with the delicate food, but the power to cut through the richer dishes as well. And so it's an interesting delicacy. We will finish up and we'll make the final decision on which blend to bottle at lunch.
Of course.
Most people do wine versus wine versus wine, and okay, this is our first choice.
Yeah.
We'll bottle that.
Yeah.
We'll say, okay, after the last flight of 10, here are the top 3. Let's take them to lunch. Right. Let's see which glass gets empty first. The glass that gets empty first is the one we bottle. Almost always, it's not the one that came in first, wine versus wine versus wine.
Yeah. Do you look back to the late 60s, early 70s, those early wines you made for inspiration with what you're doing now? Now that you're kind of coming full circle again, or is it...
I do, because what I like to do is go back and taste those older wines to see how they aged versus what I remember they tasted like when they were young. Right. I'll give you a very quick example. 1974 was considered one of the top years of this, not only the 70s, but 60s, 70s, maybe even into the 80s. Just a great vintage. You go back today and taste the 73, 74, 75 side by side, and we should do it sometime together. It'd be fun. I'm serious.
I got an hour.
I have plenty of them in my cellar.
Awesome.
But we'll go and taste them. And first time I did this about 5 years ago, I said, well, the 74 is just going to
Knock it. Yeah.
opposite. The 73 and 75 are more enjoyable, better balance, and invite you to have another sip. The 74 is starting to show age. It was so big it wasn't balanced with the tannins and the acidities. And so it is aging prematurely because it was slightly obese. It wasn't lean and healthy.
It wasn't lean and healthy. It didn't have.
And so in learning that, I went, okay, bigness is not beautiful for long-aged wines. If you want a big wine, drink it within the first decade.
Yep. Yep.
And so by going back and tasting these older vineyards, and then we'll pull in, my son always loves to go in and grab a Margaux, because that's one of his, and they're my cellar, so he's drinking.
Right, exactly.
And so when we go back and also taste how the great first growths and some of the boutiques are aging, it's a constant education. It's really fun and interesting to do.
Yeah. So do you kind of split the difference nowadays? Like maybe not make the wine like in 73, but maybe 73 with a little 74 mixed in, tossed with a little just kind of today.
If the 74 and 73 were blended, the 73 would still be better, but it would make the 74 better. It just had too much intensity to get a nice long life.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather interesting. The other thing is that different varieties age at different rates. Needless to say, as I'm sure you know, Merlot will age more quickly, and you want to drink it younger than a Cabernet Franc or Petit Verdot. But by blending them, I don't have the experience yet with Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Verdot for long-term aging. I have it for Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon, or Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, but Petit Verdot is relatively new, by new, in the last 15 or 20 years to the Napa winemaking for how does that age in the future. As we mentioned earlier, so many of the wines are consumed quickly.
Yeah.
Which is another reason that we're just introducing the 2009 vintage now, even though the 10 vintage of Bordeaux and a lot of the boutique producers in California, I want 2 years minimum bottle age in my wine.
Got it.
Because the first year in the bottle for great wines, the wine's like a teenager. On one dinner party, very good behavior. Next dinner party, teenager may throw a tantrum. Young wines are like that. So if you wait for 2 years in the bottle before you release the wine, at least you have a chance of that being a young adult rather than a teenager.
A little more well-behaved.
A little more well-behaved
Well-mannered.
consistently, yes.
Wow, this wine's crazy good. So you're only just going to be working with this estate vineyard, or in the future you got the...
For the M Cabernet, it's essentially all is estate vineyard. We have an emblem wine, which is really fun, that is, and M is styled for my style of wine. The emblem is created by my son Rob and daughter Dina. And it's your generation of wine. They like a little more velvety on it, less of the Bordeaux-esque, if you will, less of the structure. And it is really wonderful the way that wine's developing. The first 2 years we were going to make that wine, the three of us, I kept pushing more for this style, and they kept pushing more for more of a California style, but not the jammy alcohol, very lower alcohol and very velvety and bordering on voluptuous. And I kept saying, no, no, no. And then finally, a couple of years ago, I said, hold it. They should make the wine of their style.
Yeah,
Let
it's
them
their
do
wine.
it.
Yeah.
It's their wine.
This is your wine.
This is mine. So
Right.
I got out of their way, and now they made it better than I would have done it. So it's great.
Well, check it out, you guys. See this guy? He's drank and made more great California wine than any of us could even ponder or imagine. It's not a leap of faith. Just, you need this. This is basically 40 years, 50 years of research, fun research, right?
It was good research.
50 years of research to create what's in this bottle, which to me is as it should be, one of the finest Napa Valley cabs in the market.
Kind of going back to the future, in 1907 there was a World's Fair in Paris. There were 3 Napa Valley Cabernets that got gold medals at that World's Fair. Every one of them was hillside vineyard. Not one of them was grown in the valley floor. And that's what opened my eyes about 25 years ago of, hey, we got to get back up in the hills. That's where you get the character. That's where you get the layers of flavor with elegance.
You did it.
Thank you, sir.
You already knew that.
Well, the glass gets empty.
See your grandma? Okay, good. See? Thank you for coming, sir. We really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Come, we'd love to take you and many of your fine customers up and show them the vineyard because it is breathtaking. It
Game
is
on.
Absolutely breathtaking.
We're there.
It's great.
Cheers.